Well, my friends, if you have your Bibles with you, your iPads, iPhones, again, whatever you're working with, the truth is still the truth. Turn with me to the Gospel of St. John.
All right.
The Gospel of St. John, start at verse 8. Chapter 8.
All right.
The Gospel of St. John, chapter 8, and I just have 2 verses for you. And herein, my friends, is how New International Version records God's Word. Starting with verse 31. John chapter 8, beginning with verse 31. To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. And verse 32 says, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Verse 31, to the Jews who have believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Verse 32, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You may receive, my friends, and also the presence of God. The other day, I was online reading an article from the American Film Institute.
All right.
And this was an interesting article. I like movies. I like movies, but I don't get a chance to watch them as often, but I do like movies. But this article from American Film Institute, it was listing the 100 top quotes from movies over the past 100 years.
Right.
All these famous quotes that we use day to day, and we're so familiar with it. And they listed all these quotes, and so I decided to go read through these. And as I read through that article, I saw quotes that were familiar to me because I had seen the movie. And I saw quotes that I was familiar with because I just heard and I never knew where it came from.
All right.
And these quotes covered this wide spectrum of movies, from family movies to kids movies. It was all there. And I'm sure if you and I, if I were to say a few of these quotes from the movie, I'm sure some of you sitting here today will probably know where they came from. So I'm going to try to test your movie acumen, if you don't mind. I'm going to say part of the quote and tell me, just shout out if you know the movie. Frankly, my dear, I don't.
Gone with the wind.
Gone with the wind. All right, that's right, that's right. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Oh, somebody been saved all their life. That's right, the Godfather. It said, Toro, I got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Wizard of Oz.
That's right, that's right. How about this one? They call me Mr. Tibbs.
He didn't know.
It is here tonight, that's right. Show me your money. Jerry, come on, guys. Come on. All right, here's an easy one for you. Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. Forrest Gump. How about this one? Houston, we have a problem. Apollo 13. There were so many of them. I like going through these. And as I was going through these movie quotes, truly, I came across one from 1992, a movie in 1992. I have seen this movie so many times, and I love this particular scene in the movie where this quote came from. I have seen it. I like this movie. It's a very intense, a very heated dialogue when this quote comes across in the movie, and this line is just shouted out. Let me see if you can recognize the movie. You can't handle the truth. Oh my goodness.
A few good men.
Come on, talk to me, Sister Bradford. A few good men. With Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, and they're in the courtroom, and he's a Marine colonel, and he's a Navy lieutenant. They're going back and forth. He's on the witness stand. But what struck me about this, my friends, regarding this quote, is that it seems to have present-day application. Because when I listen to the rhetoric coming across, going around this country in 2021, I think there are so many individuals who just can't handle the truth. We have individuals whom I suspect are living in an alternate reality simply because they can't handle the truth. Preacher, what are you talking about? Okay, come closer, come closer. Let's see if you agree with me. We all know what happened on January 6th of this year. We saw a bunch of thugs storm our Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and attempt to disrupt our democratic process for electing President Biden of the United States of America.
Right.
This was an insurrection on our own soil, and the entire world witnessed this, and the world was shocked.
Amen.
But here we are, nearly 6 months later to the day, and we have some of our very own leaders in Washington, D.C. They are reluctant to conduct an independent commission because they don't want to get to the facts. I've heard some refer to January 6th, this mob, where 5 people died. They have referred to it as a terrorist group. Why are they saying this? Because you know and I know they can't handle the truth. All right, let me give you another one. You and I know that in 1787, during the Constitutional Convention, our founding fathers came up with the 3/5 compromise. The 3/5 compromise, we know, was allowed slave-owning states who viewed their slaves as property to still count them as 3/5 of a person. And by doing this compromise, this allowed those slave-owning states to have more seats in Congress and continue to allow for slavery. But not only would they have more seats in Congress and perpetuate slavery, they would be able to appoint federal judges, have influence in the courthouse, and influence on all the laws and the books that were designed to keep slavery in place. But just this year, we had a U.S. congressman suggest that the 3/5 compromise was beneficial to end slavery. There was no way this 3/5 compromise was designed to end slavery. It was designed to keep slavery on the books. But why did he say this? Because he can handle the truth. All right, let me give you one more. The 1619 Project. This was written by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nicole Hannah Jones 2 years ago. The 1619 Project, again, it was published in August 2019, and it focuses on the enslaved Africans who landed on the shores of the U.S. in Virginia in 1619. Now, growing up in the south side of Chicago, I was taught about the Pilgrims landing on Plymouth Rock in 1620, a year later. But I was never taught about the enslaved Africans who arrived in Virginia in 1619. And all the 1619 Project is doing is attempting to provide more clarity on our country's history and show the impact of slavery and how it has shaped this nation. The 1619 Project is not trying to be divisive. It's not trying to call people racist. It's just saying this is our history. But yet you have many of our congressional leaders and those who have been and who have retired, who have no longer been elected to Congress. We have so many leaders in this nation who do not want the 1619 Project taught in our schools. Why don't they want it in schools? Come on, somebody shout at me. Because they can't handle the truth. Say it with me. And my brothers and sisters, I share this with you this morning because whenever we attempt to hide the truth or refuse to accept the truth, we are on a very slippery slope. Can I tell you, when it comes to the truth, we cannot cover it up. We cannot dress it up. We cannot tidy it up. We can't clean it up. We can't mess it up. We can't screw it up. Or we cannot even shut it up. When dealing with the truth, St. Paul, we must try not to shut it down. We can't slow it down. We can't hunker down. We can't clap it down. We can't take it down. We can't hold it down. We can't lock it down. And we sure enough can't give it a good beat down. Because the fact of the matter, my friends, is the truth is just the truth. And someone who's listening to me this morning here online, you know what I'm talking about. Because there are some truths in your life
right.
that you're trying to keep close hold on.
Watch out.
You just don't want it to get out. You don't want your neighbor to know that you're struggling to pay your rent. You don't want your friends to know that you or a family member is struggling with substance abuse.
Right.
You don't want anyone to know that your marriage is hanging on by a thread.
Right.
You don't want anyone to know that you had a yesterday. And can I tell you, St. Paul, we all had a yesterday, but we feel so bad about it, we don't want to talk about it. Because for some of us, our yesterday involves having a criminal record. It involves going through bankruptcy court. It involves having an abortion. It involves a failed marriage. And as a result of trying to conceal the truth, you will find yourself trying to rewrite history, whitewash the past in a perpetual cover-up. But can I tell you, my friends, instead of trying to cover it up, you should just be willing to speak up. You should be willing to stand up and turn your tragedy into your testimony. What do I mean? Yes, I had an abortion when I was 16, but look at what God has done for me now. Look at God has delivered me. Yes, I had a failed marriage years ago, but look at what God is doing now in my life. Yes, I spent years in and out of drug rehab, but look at how God has delivered me right now. And every one of us, my friends, has a but God moment, and that's our testimony, and it's all based on the truth. And so, I shouldn't get worked up like this. I got a lot of preachers. Okay. While I have your attention, St. Paul, I only have one request for my life today. I only have one request for my life today. And I hope that's the same for yours. I want to talk to you this morning from the subject of, I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And as we begin to prepare to go into this morning's text, let me touch on 3 quick points, and I promise you I will be done and we go straight into communion. The first thing our text teaches us is that when you need to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, there must first be a perpetual commitment. That church said you got to be committed. Okay, all right, it's in verse 31. It's in verse 31. In the text, Jesus is speaking to several individuals in the crowd who had initially believed in him. In other words, these individuals had heard Jesus speak. They liked his message and the implication it meant for their lives. So they appeared to be on board with Jesus, which is why the Bible said they had believed in him. But once they found out that his message was not the same message that they had hoped for, they were no longer excited about his message. Many of the Jewish people knew the Messiah, the Christ, was coming. They had read about what the prophets had said about this Messiah, the Christ who was coming. So they knew a Messiah was coming. And they thought when this Messiah showed up, he would deal with the Roman aggression that they were forced to live under. They thought that this Messiah would indeed be the new king and would rule as an earthly king and replace Caesar. But the more Jesus spoke, the more they began to realize that this was not his purpose nor his plan. But that's not all they thought. They thought that they were morally and spiritually sound because of their Jewish bloodline. They thought they were basically good Jews. Abraham was their father. They thought that they were following the law that Moses had given them, so they had to be all right. They were fasting and praying on a regular basis. They were going to the temple, to the synagogues. They were even giving a tithe and an offering. Surely they had to be all right in God's eyes. They thought that the message Jesus had for them was this. This is what they thought. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change a thing. And just add my ministry, referring to Jesus' ministry, just add my ministry onto your life. in their minds, they were thinking, as descendants of Abraham, they had already found favor in God's eyes. They had already found favor. And in their minds, they were thinking they really did not need Jesus that much. They just need to add his ministry onto their ministry. See, they viewed Jesus' ministry as being that extra gravy. It was very good to have, but you didn't necessarily need it. Because sometimes, my friends, that's how we are in society. We have gotten so cocky and so bold that we have convinced ourselves that we don't even need the Lord as a country. In our minds, we think as long as we have a strong, thriving economy, everyone has a job for the most part. We have advanced technology. We have a strong military power. We got nice housing for people and plenty of food and to eat and fresh water in this country. As long as we have all of that, we feel that we don't need the Lord that much in our lives. We don't need the Lord in our schools. We don't need the Lord on our job. We don't need him in our business. We don't need him that much. So surely we'll establish a law in this country. And we have a law in this country that says on the first Thursday of May, we will have a National Day of Prayer. Because we want to add that extra gravy onto what we have already made up in our mind that we're going to do regardless. We'll put our money in God we trust for that extra gravy, even though the way we spend our money does not reflect any trust in God. We'll put our hands on a Bible in the courtroom or a Bible when we're taking an oath of office because that's our extra gravy. But then we'll lie through our teeth while we're sitting on the witness stand or giving a deposition, and we will abuse our position in an office that we are sworn to uphold. But can I tell you, saints of God, if we're not careful, we will bring that same mentality into our church. We will begin to think that this ministry is all ours and the Lord is just along for the ride. We will get so full of ourselves that we will fool ourselves into believing that we are doing God a favor by preaching his word every Sunday. We are doing him a favor every time we sing a song, that he should be pleased that we are coming out to church and gracing him with our presence or serving in the ministry. God should be pleased that we are doing him a solid by praying and reading his word, dialing into his Bible study. God should just bow down to us that we are benefiting him when we bring him a tithe and give him an offering. But can I tell you, St. Paul, Jesus is not an add-on. He's not a spare tire. He's not a just in case. And he is not for emergency use only. Jesus does not need us, but we need him. And he doesn't want us to keep holding on to a ministry that he does not want us to do. This is why he tells us in Matthew's gospel, you cannot put new wine into old wineskins. You got to get rid of those old wineskins or it's going to burst. We have to abandon, my friends, our self-centered way of thinking, because contrary to what we believe, God does not revolve around us. In the text, Jesus will let them know that they were trapped in their lifestyle. They were prisoners to their own way of life. And then he dropped the bomb on them and told them, if they remain faithful to what he is teaching them, in other words, if they continue to listen to Jesus speak, hang on to every word he's saying, do not venture off to the left or to the right. If they do what he says, live the way Jesus tells them to live, think the way he tells them to think, and act the way he tells them to act, then and only then are they truly his disciples. And the antithesis of Jesus' statement is this: if they don't follow him, if they don't listen to what he says, if they choose to continue with harboring their traditional ways of thinking, their old ways of living, all their bad habits, he's saying they are not his disciples. And can I tell you, my friends, When you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, can I tell you what that means? When you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, that means you believe what he believes. When you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, you hang on to every word he says. When you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, you're always listening for Jesus to speak to you every single day. When you are a disciple of Jesus Christ, you want to learn from Jesus. When you are his disciple, you want his word to change your life. And you want to be an obedient disciple. You want to do what he says do. And you want to say what he says say. You want to go where he tells you to go. When you are a disciple of Jesus, when people look at you, they're going to see Jesus. Every time you open your mouth, they're going to hear Jesus speak. You're going to love like Jesus. You will be patient like Jesus. You will be kind-hearted like Jesus. If you are a disciple of Jesus, you will do just what he says. And Jesus says, if you don't do what he says, you are not his disciples. If you want to make sure that you get to ground truth, you got to be a disciple of Jesus. I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's all I want. And it means, in order to get there, we have to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. It involves a perpetual commitment. But there's more in this text, because it gets better. Because once we have a perpetual commitment, the text teaches us that we will then have promised clarity. That church, it'll be clear to us. Yeah. Once we have perpetual commitment, Jesus says we will then have promised clarity. It's in verse 32. In the text, Jesus lets us know that once they are truly his disciples, they will know the truth. It's in the text. I'm not making it up. In other words, if they're not his disciples, they don't know the truth. But once they are truly his disciples, they will then know the truth. And what Jesus was saying was, if they are not his disciples, they will continue to live in darkness. They will continue to live a lie. They may have known the Mosaic law, but if they did not know Jesus, it did not matter. You see, my friends, we don't get to know the truth simply because we come to church every Sunday. It just don't work that way. We don't get to know the truth simply because our name is on the membership roster. It doesn't work that way. It's only as we follow Jesus do we get to know the truth. That's what Jesus says. And I'm sure some of you are sitting here wondering, or online wondering, okay, preacher, tell me then what is the truth? Well, my friends, in order to understand the truth, can I tell you, you got to go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. Because when you go to Genesis chapter 1, you see what Moses records. He said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the truth, my friends. But you cannot stop there. Because once you read Genesis chapter 1, then you go to John chapter 1. And John tells us, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. That's the truth, St. Paul. But you cannot stop there. Well, John says he was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. And without him nothing was made that has been made. St. Paul, can I tell you what that's called? That's called the truth. But you cannot stop there. So John says, come on down to verse 14. And John tells me that this word became flesh. And then he dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory. The glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. But can I take you one more to John 3:16? And tell you what that means. For God so loved the world that he gave us his one and only Son, for you. Jesus is the truth. Jesus is the answer. He's the way. He's the truth. And he is the light. And when you become his disciple, he begins to give you some of his truth. He'll give you truth about how to deal with the broken heart. He'll give you truth about dealing with your medical condition. He'll give you truth about how to handle your broken finances. He'll give you truth on how to walk with him and not stumble. He will give you truth on how to wake up each morning knowing that this is the day that Jesus has made. And I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. When you become his disciple, he shares some truth with you. He shares some truth on how to be a mama. He shares some truth on how to be a daddy. He shares some truth on how to be a young person. He'll give you some truth on how to manage your money. He'll give you some truth on how to love your enemies. He'll give you some truth on how to forgive those who get less on you. He'll give you some truth on how to live this life every single day and honor God in what you say and do. If you want the truth, you gotta go to where the truth is. And that's Jesus. All right. Let me give you one more. Because I know someone ready to get that grill started. I know. All right. If you want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, first thing we know is what? You must first have what? A perpetual commitment. But there's more, because if you want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, once you have that perpetual commitment, you are guaranteed promised clarity. But the last thing our text teaches us is this. If you want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, once you have promised clarity, you will have permanent freedom. Let church say, you're permanently free. Yeah. This is the end part of verse 32. All right. 2 weeks ago, our nation tried to correct a miscarriage of justice that happened nearly 160 years ago. President Joseph Biden, he signed into law and declared Juneteenth as a federal holiday. And we all know the story with Juneteenth, because on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and he was freeing all enslaved African Americans. But in Texas, the slaves were not freed until June 19th, 1865, nearly 18 months later. They had to wait until they received word and received deliverance. In the text, Jesus let them know that once they know the truth, they shall be set free. And what he was telling these people was, they were still trapped. They were still confined. They had no way out. That's what you're saying. But here's the kicker. They didn't feel like they were in bondage. They didn't feel like they were confined. They thought they were already free. And the reason why they thought that way is because they did not understand the truth. They did not realize that they were still trapped in sin. I know we don't talk about sin that much in church, but every now and then we need to talk about sin. They were still trapped in their sin. They have seemingly forgotten what happened in the Garden of Eden. They have seemingly forgotten about their foreparents and how they persecuted the prophets of God. They have forgotten all the mess that they had done this morning or the next morning or the previous morning. They have forgotten all the dirt and behind the deals they had done to their neighbors. They have forgotten that they were born in sin and shaped in iniquity. They didn't even know what the Apostle Paul was going to later write, that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Because I got to tell you the reason why they didn't know. Because this was sin will do to you. when you do not know the truth. Sin will take you farther than you ever wanted to go. It will make you stay longer than you ever wanted to stay. It will make you pay more than you ever thought you would have to pay. But I'm so glad, St. Paul, that Jesus paid a debt that he did not owe. And he paid a price that I could not pay. Down in Texas, after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, many of the slaves never received the word. They didn't realize that they were supposed to be free. They didn't know that a law had been signed, granting them freedom. So they kept living as slaves. They kept having a slave mentality because they never knew the truth. And every now and then, St. Paul, if you and I are not careful, we may find ourselves living like slaves. We too forget that nearly 2,000 years ago, on a hill called Calvary, Jesus paid the price for our freedom. He hung on that old rugged cross from noon until 3, until the sun refused to shine. He hung on that cross until his blood dripped down like a scroll. And then he breathed his last breath when he said it is finished. He did it for you, and he did it for me. But saints, I'm so glad that that's not how the story ends. Someone can help me preach this. On Sunday morning, he shook loose the devil with no hold on to him. He shook loose the devil, and he rose up. The devil had lost his sting, and Jesus rose up with all power in heaven and earth. And because Jesus paid the price, St. Paul, you and I, we are now free. And my Bible tells me that he whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And because we've been set free, we don't have to keep returning to the same bad habits. We don't have to keep doing the same bad things. We don't have to keep gossiping. We don't have to keep lying. We don't have to keep being difficult. We don't have to blame everyone. And we don't have to feel bad for our past sins, our past mistakes, our shortfalls, our failures, our mistakes, and our misdeeds. We have been set free, St. Paul. We are free from the power of sin. We are free from the pain of sin. And we are free from the penalty of sin. He who the Son sets free, he is free indeed. And I just want to know, St. Paul, are there any free people in the house today? Are there any that's in over here who feel like they've been set free? And you all can shout and say, thank you, Lord. Because he who the Son set free, he is free indeed. And if you don't mind me saying so, I'm a free man. I don't need the papers. I got the blood of Jesus, and he will set me free. And I just want to know, St. Paul, ain't he all right? We should always want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Even if it hurts our feelings, we want to know the truth. Even if it makes us uncomfortable, we need to know the truth. When I go to the doctor, I want the doctor to tell me the truth. Don't hide it from me. Don't try to make me feel. Tell me the truth. If I got bills, my wife gets the bills. If we got bills, we got to tell me what we owe. I've learned a long time ago, bad news don't get better over time. Give it to me straight. I don't need to chase it. Give it to me straight. I want to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Nothing but the truth. And I know that Jesus is the truth. Go to the church over, saints.